Hey, what's up, guys? It's Ben. Today I'm coming at you with another video. This time I'm going to be breaking down my top 5 most creative submission finishes in UFC history. 2 things I was looking for with this. Is it a unique submission, right? So when you're talking about typical submissions in the UFC, you're talking about rear naked choke, guillotine.
He's doing it again. They told him not to go for the guillotine, but he's going for it.
Armbar, Kimura, maybe. There's probably one I'm missing or two, but for the most part, that's it. That's most of what the finishers are. With this, I'm looking at ones that are not typically used. And then the second one is kind of a seamless transition. So I'm not talking about somebody who's just so much better than their opponent that they can pretty much do whatever they want. I'm talking about a situation where the flow actually puts them into a position where they can take this maneuver. And so I'm going to get started then with number 5. So number 5, I got Ovince St. Preux versus Nikita Krylov Von Flue choke. So Ovince takes him down and he gets into a position. And then Krylov decides, okay, I'm going to try to hit a guillotine, right? And here's something interesting to talk about is that I remember my jiu-jitsu coach talking about this because I think one of the other students asked him about this choke and Ovince St. Preux and this, and he's like, well, I've done this before. That's what my coach said. He's like, but the thing about it is that it's pretty easy to counter because it's, so like if you take the guillotine and then you don't let it go, then you get yourself in that position. And it can work against white belts. But see, here's the thing. In the UFC, because they have gloves, right, it can be harder to get your hand out once you go for that guillotine. And so that's what I think kind of opens it up for Ovince St. Preux to submit more people in MMA with this submission. And so what he does is he's in the guillotine, right? And then he just starts moving his shoulder and getting into position. And then suddenly he finishes it. And I thought it was just a beautiful execution, and that's why it's my number 5. Number 4, I got Twister, Chan Sung Young, versus Leonard Garcia. I believe he usually goes by the Korean Zombie. But anyways, that's his nickname, and he actually kind of prefers to be called that. And if you're a wrestler, this is actually kind of a move that you can use in folk style. It's called a guillotine in folk style, but it does miss an important element. So you kind of get a cross-body kind of twist going. In folk style, what you do is you just hold them there, right? You wrap around them, but you don't twist because then that would be potentially dangerous. And so what he does is he hooks, he lets the rear naked go, right? So the rear naked, he's got it. He's got both hooks, but Leonard Garcia gets out of it. And then he hooks one leg and then starts twisting the other way. And it's just a great use of that submission. And there were 2 other people that did it, but he was like the first one in the UFC, I think, to use it. And I like him. I think most out of any of the other fighters that have done this submission. The Korean Zombie is really cool. And so that's why I selected his. And also he did it first in the UFC. All right, so I got number 3, Ben Sanders versus Chris Heatherly, omoplata. And so this is kind of it's kind of a shoulder lock situation where you have your leg over the top of their shoulder and their arm is kind of bent around you and you kind of crank on their shoulder. And I remember watching one of the Gracies. Unfortunately, I can't remember his name. Maybe I'll be able to put it up here. One of the Gracies kind of breaking down actually for the UFC this submission, Ben Sanders versus Chris Heatherly. Talked about how Ben Sanders did it. He did so many things that were right to make this thing work so he could actually get the submission. And he kind of phased into it, and it was just such a beautiful use of the submission. And that's why it's my number 3. So number 2, I got Frank Mir versus Pete Williams, inside shoulder lock. So this one's really interesting because it's one of those ones that it doesn't look like it's really going anywhere until it does, and then it's there. With this, Frank Mir's on his back. He's got him in guard, closed guard, I think, or closed open, probably transitioning between the two. But in any event, he's got guard, And so then he starts working on that arm or right around the elbow and then the shoulder, because inside shoulder lock. And so he was working on it, and he just starts twisting, and then you see pain go across the guy's face, and he taps. It's beautiful submission grappling, and I really like the way that he executed it. So yeah, number 1, I got Alexei Oleinik and Victor Pest. So the Ezekiel choke. Alexei Oleinik submitted Victor Pest with the Ezekiel choke. And it's just like what I talked about with Ovince St. Preux. And it's like Victor Pest is on top of Alexei, and he thinks he's doing some stuff, and then Alexei gets him in his guard, pulls him real in close, right? He pulls him real in close. And then suddenly Alexei's got his arms wrapped around him. It looks kind of weird, and it doesn't like, okay, what's going on? And then suddenly Victor Pest is tapping, right? Because he's got the Ezekiel. He's got his arms wrapped, tied up in there, and it's got around his neck. And like in the limited jiu-jitsu that I've done, I think I've kind of tried to go for something like that before. And I may have gotten it, and then other people have tried it on me, and it's weird. But once you start to get in there and you start putting pressure with your forearms around the neck area, it can get real tight real quick. And I think it just snuck up on Victor Pest. He didn't expect it to happen. He just left it open, and Alexei's like, okay, I'll take it. And it's so smooth. And like, I think it really shocked Victor Pest because he tapped, and then he was just kind of sitting there, and he was kind of half dazed. So part of it, I think he was like, what the hell just happened? And not necessarily losing his senses, but also a little bit, it could have been. He could have been starting to lose air, and the blood wasn't fully getting, actually it might have been blood. Because I think it's a blood choke. But anyways, so it's cutting off blood to the neck. And so that might have been part of it. It was just such a beautiful execution of that submission, and I really like it, and that's why it's my number 1. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. Please like, comment what you thought of this video, comment what you thought of my picks, and subscribe. I will see you all later.